on the
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Explaining the Unexplainable. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Explaining the Unexplainable. If we were going to explain the explainable, that would be awfully easy then. So, of course, it can't be the explainable. It has to be the unexplainable. So, with that, with that said, I'm going to turn the intro over to the amazing Bishop Dr. Joshua Sparks.
So I put my hat on just for that, so I could tip my hat. You see what my hat says? I'm Josh doing Josh things.
Oh, I love that. You know,
I'm wearing a special tonight for Charlie.
Oh, awesome!
I appreciate
it. Charlie.
Well, you know, there are moments in life when the veil feels thin, when what we see no longer explains what we experience, and tonight is one of those moments. Welcome to Explaining the Unexplainable, where mystery meets meaning, and the questions most are afraid to ask are the very ones we run toward. Because let's be honest, not everything fits into neat categories. Not every shadow is just a trick of the light, and not every story can be dismissed as coincidence. Think about it. How many times have you felt something you couldn't explain, heard something that wasn't there, or walked into a room and knew something had shifted? These aren't just stories, these are encounters, and tonight we lean into them. I'm joined always by my incredible co host, Mercedez Lucke Benedict, bringing insight, discernment, and a fearless curiosity to the conversation. And tonight, all across this nation and around the world in all 24 time zones, we welcome back someone who doesn't just talk about the unknown, he chases it, documents it, and lives it. He's a podcast host, the voice behind Shadows of Legend, also a new podcast I hear we're going to be talking about tonight. He's an author, a journalist. He's a conference speaker. And more than that, a trusted voice in a world filled with noise. But to me, he's also one of my dear friends. So please welcome back the one, the only Charles Romans. Brother Charlie, welcome. Every time you come on this show, you bring us into something deeper, something that challenges what we think we know. And since the last time we sat down together, I know you've been on new adventures, uncovering new stories, and maybe even encountering things you still can't fully explain. So let me ask you, what's been happening in your world since we last talked, and what have you seen? What have you experienced? And what are you bringing with you tonight, my friend?
Well, you know, a lot of what I'd like to talk about tonight is responses to other things. It's when you have several people searching for answers, they all bring different skill sets to the table. And I know Mercedes had sent me a link to a previous show where a gentleman was working on a new communication device to contact spirits. And while I was watching that, I was listening to him explain how someone who may be a native French speaker, for instance, and I'm paraphrasing here, when they communicate, you hear it in the language that you're able to receive it. Well, for some time now, I've been thinking about, of course, human beings are electrical chemical organisms. And the neurons that race through our brains are what actually carry our thoughts. Well, if you consider this to be energy, bone and skin is not a very good insulator.
Right.
So all this energy that our brain is generating is actually leaking out of our bodies. Now, some people call it ESP and other, cosmic consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Some people can pick up on this. Other people are blissfully unaware of the thoughts other people have. Now, it seems that this gentleman here had invented a device that allowed spirits and humans to tune into this energy, because it's a frequency that our physical bodies can't grasp, can't process. And I just found that to be interesting, that two people looking at things from totally different viewpoints could arrive at close to the same conclusion.
Well, you know what? We're talking about Tony Rathman, and I so enjoyed meeting him in person this past Saturday at the Paranormal Festival in Oracle, Arizona.
Oh, imagine that was great.
Oh my gosh, it was so amazing, and looks like I'll be able to go to the one that he'll be at in the Superstition Mountains in October, which that's what the one I wanted to go to. And so this one was just an extra neat thing I got to do. But it was phenomenal. And you know what, Joshua, we were so blessed because that week he was here, he shared, I knew all the stuff because he kind of talked about the same thing. So it was like I got to rehear it and then see him in person and meet his wife. So thank you for bringing that up. And it's still just, there's so many questions I have about that. Still so many questions, and I don't want to over talk, but thank you for bringing that up. What do you think, Joshua, about that?
Yeah, that was a really interesting show. It challenged a lot of the things that I've heard, and of course, things that I've believed. And not saying that that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You know, we have to be open minded. You know, I learned a long time ago that I learn more things when I don't think that I'm the smartest guy in the room. And I'm always open to learn new things. I may be the best looking guy in the room, but I'm just kidding. I'm not always the smartest. But
You know, I'll concede to that since we're not in the same room.
yes. But no, you know, and I think it's fascinating that we get to meet so many wonderful people. And we told him about you, Charlie, and about your podcast, and we're going to try to get you all hooked up together, and we can get him on the podcast. And but you know, it's always a great honor to have Charlie come around here, because Charlie's like he's like a permanent fixture here at Explaining the Unexplainable. And we always love to hear Charlie's, because there's, you know, I've met a lot of people in my time on this earth, and Charlie is a great storyteller. I love to hear him tell his stories, and just, he's got the perfect voice. And, you know, I wish that Charlie had a show as big as Coast to Coast, because he would really,
for what it's worth, yes.
He would, you know, we need to get George to get Charlie on Coast to Coast.
Well, see, that's a good segue, because the new YouTube channel I've just started is called Casting Shadows with Charlie Romans. And what I'm doing on this show, I'm sharing old legends, new legends, and some fictional stories, because I do like to tell a story, and other stories that are supposed to be true. And I say supposed to be, not because I think that they're invalid, but I say that because they've not been proven.
Right. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be an awesome YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like it's not the same as the legends. So is that what you mean? It's like legends may not be proved because they may be just legends. Is that what you meant?
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, you know, one of the first stories I'm going to tell comes from Victorian England. And obviously, you can't call somebody up that lived in Victorian times and ask them exactly what happened and verify information and things of that nature.
Well, Tony might be able to.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, and you know, if we could pull that off, that would be great, because, you know, I would like to talk to a lot of people in history. But even in that episode, of course, he himself said, you can't really prove that that's who you're talking to.
Right. Because they could be the tricksters or any spirit.
Exactly, yes. And and it comes back to what I said before about flesh and bone not being a good insulator. It's more of a conductor. So if a spirit an entity will say, that is capable of reading that energy and interpreting that energy, then mind reading is ridiculously simple because, if we could see the thoughts above our head leaking out, it would be just like the old cartoons where you have the heat trails coming off of someone.
That's true.
So when you have more information than someone else, it becomes ridiculously easy to deceive them.
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons I don't necessarily try to prove things. I try to provide information. Josh mentioned that I'm a journalist. I really enjoy that job. But I wrote a column once, don't just believe everything I say. I'm going to do my best not to lie to you, but I could be wrong. So verify everything. The problem with the strange and the paranormal is verification is often at a premium. And it's just so strange how these things have haunted us throughout history.
Mm.
I was thinking about the show. Of course, I encountered one of the other truly scary things in my life, a 3-hour city council meeting, which oh, the horror.
Than any big further. Yeah.
In their defense, they had a lot of ground to cover. I'm not making fun of them, but it was a long meeting, and I'm driving home in the dark down this country road. And it reminded me of when my wife and I were dating. The home I'm sitting in right now is the house that she grew up in. We bought it with my parents. So
Wow.
when I was much younger and crazy and could stay up all hours of the night, I would come out, and there used to be these shows on television. There was Freddy's Nightmares, which was scary, spooky stories, and Freddy Krueger, of course, narrating and stuff like that. Friday the 13th, the series.
Oh, yeah.
I remember these.
About cursed items. Great show.
Oh, that was a good show.
And Tales from the Dark Side with
Yeah.
one of the chilling openings ever.
Oh, I hated that opening. Oh, my goodness. Me and my sister would cover our heads up with the sheets.
So I would watch these. We'd set up here because, we were young and broke. And some of our dates, and a lot of our dates ended up her mom and dad going to bed. And I sat in the living room watching these scary shows. And then I would go out, say goodnight, go out and get in my car and drive 40 minutes to get home. Dark country roads at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So you think about these things, and when you're driving by in the dark, it's a lot like trying to interpret the strange and the paranormal. You're driving down the road and you see something white flashing through the trees. Maybe it's a bird, or in this case would be a bat at night. Maybe it's something supernatural, or maybe it's a Walmart bag that has blown up off the road and stuck in a tree branch. You never really know because, I used to drive faster than I do now, but I'm flying down the road on a curvy country road, 45, 55 miles an hour, and I see something out of the corner of my eyes, and, for not the first time, I've thought, it's a good thing I'm really not twitchy. So, but that is used to prove both sides of the coin of belief and disbelief. We don't have quite enough information, but we want to believe, so we say that's what it is. Or we don't have proof or enough information to say, no, that's crazy. It was something normal. You just misinterpreted it. When I believe, and all the studying I've done and all the people I've talked to over the last several years, because I didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday, I believe it's somewhere in between. We're always surrounded by truth and misinterpretation. Coming back to what Josh said earlier about questioning things, posed questions, we'll say, because if you say you're questioning faith, it means something entirely different. But raised questions, we'll say. Okay. Now, personally, I subscribe to the Judeo-Christian explanation of God, the universe, and everything in it. That's my belief system. But the studying that I've done in that religion, you realize not really a whole lot of information on how it was done. Okay. God doesn't say, okay, on the third day I sat down and picked up some twigs and manipulated them and, made a monkey because I thought it was funny. God doesn't say that. It's broad strokes. The pointed information in all of the documents for the Christian faith is how the human interacts with the divine. Okay. Now, if you come up with the information and you figure out how God did it, does that validate God? Short answer, and I think the proper answer is no.
Right.
But it is fascinating to question, and curiosity gets us in a lot of trouble. We can make phenomenal advances in medicine and social programs and things because we're curious. But the other side of curiosity is almost like revenge procrastination. You didn't tell me the answers, so I'm mad about that because I need to know. When really you don't have to know, but we get mad that we weren't told. So, and at that point, our curiosity takes on an edge that may work against us.
Well, our brain likes predictability. You was talking about seeing things in the night, and for years we worked for I worked for the Independent for 14 years. 5 of those years I worked in the office, as a district manager under Nat. That's back before Nat passed away.
Yeah.
But I remember passing papers at night, and you hear them old scary movie soundtracks going through your mind as you're walking up on somebody's porch out in the country when it's dark outside. You don't know what you're going to meet. And I'll never forget, Dad was driving down the road and a Walmart bag attacked him. He thought it was a bat, and he's sitting there beating himself in the neck and stuff, trying to get this bat off of him. And it was a Walmart bag. And when you said Walmart bag, I just about lost it, because that's what I remember. Dad thinking he was getting attacked by a vampire.
Well, it's interesting. The fears we've had over the centuries, they are. One fear is replaced with another. It's still the same basic archetypal fear. We're afraid of the unknown. Okay. An individual in the 3rd century his main fear might have been a wild animal out in the darkness to attack him. An individual in the 21st century in an urban setting in the dark might be afraid that a human would jump out and attack them. You trade one for another. Now that's a basic comparison, but the one I really like to use is we developed the fear of the dead. Okay, part of the reason we fear the dead is that we can't grasp the reality of our own mortality, rather, or morality, but I meant mortality. So when we look at someone, especially someone we knew that has passed away, our brain, our soul, if you will, rejects that on a very visceral level. And that rejection is converted to fear. So for centuries, people have been terrified of undead, things coming back from the dead. And
sometimes they come back, Charlie.
Well, that's true. And, on the other hand, sometimes dead's better.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that. When you talk about a scary movie.
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, my goodness. Pet Sematary was probably the scariest movie I've ever seen. I'm sorry.
It was horrible. So sad.
The Salem Lot movies were challenging, we'll say. But the book was horrifying.
Yeah, I read that book too.
And
And you know what? When you watch them now, how simple they are. They're so simply scary. They're simple.
Very, very much so. Our tastes have evolved. Okay. Part of it's becoming jaded.
Mm.
We and that's how you went from psychological horror to a more visceral splatterpunk horror.
Yeah, and I never liked that change. I was like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see all this. I prefer like Alfred Hitchcock. I prefer the simple, scary Ghost of Mr. Chicken, whatever.
What
I'm like,
about Ray? What
They
about Ray Bradbury? Remember, Ray Bradbury wrote some good short videos. What about how you felt the first time you seen in black and white George Romero and John Russo's Night of the Living Dead?
oh my lord,
oh, that was
I was so horrified.
life's
Oh
favorite.
my goodness!
It is. But it's Night of the Living Dead is well, I mean, groundbreaker because I mean it set the stage. You've got this guy and his sister. They're in the cemetery, and they see this strange shambling person through there, and the brother's making fun because the sister's looking great. And like coming for you, Barbara. And actually, zombie and kills him. And the horrifying thing, she becomes almost catatonic. If it hadn't been for Dwayne in the story, I guess I think that was his name.
Ben. It was Dwayne that played him, but Ben. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
What
Yeah.
was Dwayne's last name? I was trying to think of that today. We was listening to that soundtrack, Jeremy and I, on the way to work after we got through praying. We put that. I don't know why we put that soundtrack on, but
that's interesting. You put that on.
no.
That
Jones.
Dwayne Jones. Okay.
Yeah.
But that exact thing, the disbelief until it's too late. My wife and I were sitting on the back porch, and we used to have a swing out there, looking out into the field next to our house, and we were talking about that kind of thing. See, well, if somebody in a mask and a pair of coveralls come walking across the field, we would think it was one of our neighbors doing something stupid. And it would literally be too late before we realized, no, this is a psychotic and perhaps supernatural killer. And it would almost be too late. And I don't know, I may have mentioned this before, but my wife and I were talking about this. And she said, if we're out at night and something howls, she thinks dog, I think werewolf. Okay.
Same here.
But the actual presence of a werewolf, I think that she would convert to believing that it was real before I would, simply because I'm inundated with tales of lupine creatures throughout history. That is my scariest monster right there. Because, vampires, I'm not afraid of vampires, yes, they're brutal or dangerous, but I'm not afraid of anything I can talk to because there's a chance I can talk my way out of it. And they have to follow rules, you to cross garlic, stuff like that. Yeah, very problematic for them.
Well, Julia Hoffman actually did cure Barnabas because I met Jonathan Fridd in 1991 in Huntington, West Virginia.
Yeah.
At the Fools and Fiends Festival. And he was out in the daytime. And my mom was scared to death of him. She wouldn't she took our pictures, but she wouldn't get around him. And he was such a gentleman. And I was the only kid there. And he treated me like I was the only person in the building. I was at the end of the line. He said, "Hey, you come here." He signed everything. He signed a little piece of paper for me. He signed everything we had. And he was just like meeting a long-lost friend. But not all vampires are like Barnabas Collins, right?
Well,
some of them are like Christopher Lee.
Oh, Christopher Lee was horrifying. Right.
Oh gosh, the blood coming out of the eyes and just. Hey, Tony.
Funny thing.
Is he on here? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh no, I told him I said message that we were talking about him. I didn't know he would be on, but yeah. Well, and it's when you think about that, like especially what Tony had done. What Tony's doing. Like you could literally. It said they cannot tell you the future, which makes sense. But you could ask questions about vampires and werewolves. And I believe that they come through the portals and different things. I believe in the portals. In fact, I was watching and I sent everybody this. I sent you all a link. It popped up on YouTube and I watched the whole thing. It was David Icke speaking with, I've never seen this, with a person named Arizona something. I can't remember
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
I haven't watched it, but I've
Oh
seen
my God. But it's hard. It's terrible. It's what we've heard of, things like that. But there was something that was mentioned about the people. She said that there are entities or beings that have been put in the abyss, and I was thinking about like when we listen to Tony's. Uh, it's like they're in a room and
yeah,
they're saying like, well, hey, he hears us, and I'm thinking like, well, maybe there's different. You know, when she was talking about like they cannot get out of
yeah.
this unless they have like some they what they want. So I don't know if it's the same, you know, groups of spirits. There's I think there's different groups. But anyway,
I
I don't
mean,
want to get off on that. But
it could
that
be.
is, be sure to, you know, watch that, and maybe we could talk about it another time because it's just like
No,
mind blowing. But I do want to say that yeah, I'm sure I want to talk about the high Tony. Yeah, so I know I brought that up. Y'all probably want to talk about it. So it was just so weird.
Yeah,
Ugh.
and we've talked a lot about this too on our show. Of course, we've had a lot of people on here that have. We had that one interesting gentleman that wrote the books about vampire DNA and different things like that, and it's pretty fascinating. I'd like to get him back on eventually as well. But
Yeah.
vampires and I mean, of course, you have things like the Lost Boys or Fright Night, or I mean, there's
well,
different types of vampires that are out there, and then we talk about werewolves. Charlie and I, we've talked about the American Werewolf in London. That was probably the
yeah,
scariest werewolf movie that I've ever seen in my life. And then
Yeah.
the Howling.
yeah.
You watch these humans transform into this creature right in front of your eyes, and it's just like, oh my gosh.
Well,
Um,
on an amusing aside, we were trying to watch, and it's been years ago, trying to watch the original Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr.
oh, great movie.
Oh, this will tell you how long ago it was. I called the video store. I said, "Hey, do you have this movie? The Wolfman." Oh yeah, we've got it. This is the one with Lon Chaney, right, Jr. Right? Yes, we've got it. So we get in the car and we drive to the video store, and I pick up the box. They hand to me. I'm like, it doesn't look like it, but I rented it anyway. So it was called the Wolfman. Okay. All right. Everyone
The
else,
old one, the really old ones.
yes, but it was not Lon Chaney Jr. Everyone
Oh,
in the movie had Hungarian accents, except for the Wolfman, and he had a decidedly Texan accent.
Hey,
And
Park.
it just went south there, and it actually become fun to heckle the movie. But
oh,
now part of this, especially now, since there's been a lot of interest generated, we'll say in the last 20 years, the terminology might actually be a little off. There are people calling themselves vampires, for instance, that are not anywhere near what my concept of what a vampire is.
Right.
Like I was at the Mystic Market that's run by the people who run the Scarefest weekend, and I met this very pleasant, sweet young witch, whom I do not really believe is a witch. Perhaps goes along the lines of ancient herbalists and pseudo alchemists and things like that. She calls herself a witch. She identifies as a witch. But my interpretation of what a witch is, and again, possibly this comes back to my Judeo Christian upbringing. To be a witch, it involves a compact with infernal powers. And I do not believe that really sweet redheaded girl had sold her soul to Lucifer. I don't think that. Hey, but we change change the term, the thought behind the terminology. It's like using a shortcut, a metaphor. Metaphors are great; they get your point across if you understand the long cut that the shortcut represents. But if you keep using the shortcut over and over again, then the true knowledge of what it represents is lost.
Mm-hmm.
So, nothing for or against mediumship. I've interviewed a lot of them on my show, and I think they're credible. But not everyone who wants to be a medium actually is. The same way people experience things, and it may not be exactly what they think they are. Especially if you want to add into it the trickster spirits, for instance.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculously simple for a spirit that can manipulate. I'll just come to it. Can technically manipulate your thoughts to convince you that you were talking to your sainted Aunt Ethel, who passed away 20 years ago. It doesn't mean you're gullible. It means they have better equipment to work with. They're more advanced. If you want to put it from a scientific term, we'll consider them to be an advanced species. But the odds are against us. So you always have to be circumspect with the evidence that you gather. And when you delve into legends, you got to realize that when you focus the light of truth, of seeking, of desire, then just the act of focusing that light casts shadows in all directions. And it is get lost in the shadows.
You know, the Bible says to try the spirits, so we have to do that.
That's what I was saying. Thank you.
One day I was in Moorhead, Kentucky, working out in the woods, and a spirit came to me and approached me as my grandmother, and I had to cast it away because I realized it wasn't her; it was a demonic presence. And I rebuked it. Looked like her, talked like her, sounded like her, but it wasn't her. And I knew that it wasn't her. And you have to be careful. You have to be careful who it is that you entertain.
Good.
But, you know, it goes back to discernment, you know, being able to discern between, and like Charlie said, though, sometimes our senses are off. We don't know. We let our guard down sometimes. And sometimes it's not that we do it intentionally. We do it because we are so open-minded at times that we don't question anything.
Well, it's true. And, you know, I always like to quote Dickens when Scrooge is talking to the ghost of Marley. Marley says, "Man of the world, do you not trust the evidence of your senses?" And Scrooge says, you know, never mind the fact that he's talking to a ghost. Okay. He says, you know, the senses can be, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, be feeble, can be offset by so many different things. He said, you could be a blot of mustard or a bit of a potato. There's more of gravy than grave in you.
I love those lines.
It's humbug, I tell you.
Well, but you know, the neat thing is the one thing that is amazing though, okay, what Tony is doing is, and others have done it, like he said, but he's getting a real clear. There's no mic. I mean, it's white noise. It's a completely different way. But the fact is they are talking to him. So that is just amazing. But I do think that we could be able to, like, you know, if no matter what, that's just phenomenal. And it's just
I've never heard anybody else do that. I mean, it's all a lot of static and it's a lot, but I mean, for him to have that interaction, and what he's doing is, you know, light years beyond what I've seen other people do. I mean, I've not, and just the way that Tony is, he's so down to earth, he's so approachable, so super intelligent guy.
Yeah,
but he's so approachable. But I like the way he likes to explain things. He don't like to leave you in the dark about anything. He wants to explain things so that you can attempt to understand what it is that he's trying to do. And I think that what makes people credible is their heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And their intention behind what they do. You know, Charlie and I have had this conversation a lot. It's about what a person's intention is. And, you know, I think that Tony's intention is to educate people and let people know that there are things outside of the spectrum of the world that we can see, touch, taste, smell, and hear. And I think that that's the whole blessing and benefit of this program we have here, and in Charlie's program, Shadows of Legend. I think that we attempt to strive to give people the opportunity and the ability to look outside of all the things that we can just see and feel and touch and taste and smell, our senses, because we all know that there's something that exists out on that outer edge of what we call reality that we can't see, but we cannot not see. We don't hear, but we can't help but listening, because there's something faint that we hear. And yet we don't know what it's saying, but we know there's something saying something, but we still are intrigued because, here's another line. It's from the 1990 edition of the Night of the Living Dead, directed by Tom Savini. What are they? They're them. I mean, they're us. We're them and they're us. And I think that was in the 1978 Dawn of the Dead. What are they? They're us. That's all. And it intrigues us because I think that there's a connection between us and them. And maybe just we call to them, but maybe they're calling to us just as much as we're calling to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I believe so, because we've discussed this before. I don't think that any human being truly believes that this is all there is. I think subconsciously, at least, human animal yearns toward the spiritual. The talk I gave last year at Scarefest was about how people use different means to explain the strange and the paranormal. And typically it's in two camps. You have the scientific, and then you have the spiritualism, when honestly it should be a combination of both.
That's right.
Because it's two different tool sets. You're not going to take off a lug nut with a screwdriver. It's just, maybe possible if you're really, but the tools are designed for that. So if you can take complementary tools and put them together, then you can accomplish the task. You can learn more. But I do believe it has to be balanced, and we don't need to be too fixated and congratulate ourselves too much on the level of our knowledge, because you can call yourself an expert in anything, and it's usually a huge red flag to me when someone says, well, I'm an expert at the paranormal. It's not possible to be an expert in the paranormal. It's possible to be experienced. I have experience in cryptozoology and a host of other things. Doesn't make me an expert.
No.
I've learned how to gather information. I've even learned how to interpret information. But it doesn't mean that I have come up with definitive proof for any of them. And possibly this gentleman here with his new spirit communicator may be the first step in getting some sort of definitive proof. But simply because I've searched my entire life for things like this doesn't make me an expert. It just makes me extremely curious.
That's true. That's true. And, and being humble and sharing what you've experienced, I think that's the most important thing, and that's what we're talking about, being humble and, being teachable and being able to, share what you've learned and what you've experienced, be able to help other people maybe find some answers in their life. And I think that that comes back to what we've been talking about, legends. That's why legends are born. I remember my grandfather telling stories that were metaphorical. I know they wasn't real per se. Of course, the way he told them made me believe they were, because I believe that everything that Scotsman said was true. But Scottish men never lie. They just
no, of course not.
But the Sparks clan, we're the Highlanders. We don't no. But he taught me life lessons through the things that he shared, through the stories that he shared. There were life lessons to be learned in that. And I think that legends are born sometimes to teach us, and I think sometimes legends are born to teach us to be afraid. There was a legend. My dad would never stay at home, and my dad was as quick as a deer. And there was a certain alley that my great grandmother told him that there was an old man who kidnapped little kids and cut their heads off and put it in a knapsack because they wouldn't come home before it was dark. And my dad would make it down to that alley and he would take off running. He would look like the road runner running down to the house at the old home place. And she led him to believe that was real. And, there wasn't nobody cutting little kids' heads off, but sure as the world, he said he even saw the guy before, and there was no person there,
Well, and again, this kind of ties back to tricksters and a very famous line from a really good movie called Ghostbusters, where Gozer the Gozerian says, "Choose the form of your destruction." Okay. And of course, we ended up with the status. But think about it, these trickster beings that can take shape, but don't have a natural shape. If you're afraid of, for instance, the really old child's horror story, Raw Head and Bloody Bones, that's what you're afraid of. It'll actually make you see that.
Yeah, that's true. And it's just those stories like that, I have a great aunt that's a great storyteller. She's the one that I told you about that saw the werewolf on 168. And she swears to this day, she's in her 80s now, and she swears to this day that she saw, it wasn't a Bigfoot, it was a werewolf. I mean, she talked about the long nose and the big teeth, the big canines, and it was standing on 2 feet. And, we talked about it on this program before, Charlie, about the Ashland Cemetery werewolf. You made a video about it.
Yes.
And that was a real thing. I mean, I remember hearing about it as a kid, and those Ashland policemen being locked in the cemetery and them losing their minds because the werewolf was loose in the cemetery.
And it's hard to tell what actually birthed most of these legends. Some of them were, as you said, cautionary tales we told our children to keep them in after dark because there may actually be a wild animal out there that could hurt them, or they might get lost in the dark and fall and break something. And some
kind of like the werewolf of Wisteria Lane.
Yes.
Remember the guy that kidnapped little kids, and every time he killed one, he'd drive a pin into his hip. And, he was like a serial killer.
Yes. Funny story that I may have told you before. I got on a kick. I was ordering books online. Like, cool, I had money and I like books. So I bought a book called Werewolf. Okay. And when it showed up, it wasn't actually a book about lycanthropes. It was about these psychotic serial killers. And after reading part of that book, I'm thinking, that's worse than a werewolf.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of brings me back to what I'd said before. It's not the wolf part of a werewolf that makes it evil. It's the man part. Being a higher order, being capable of abstract thought. Humans are capable of both good and evil and the whole gamut in between. Animals aren't. Animals follow their nature. You can have a dog, for instance, that is meaner than another dog, but it still behaves as a dog. People are what can be good or bad. And, it's important to remember that because we choose to do these things. If you are an evil human being, you've chosen to be that way.
That's right.
And no amount of exorcism or amulets or rhymes or tokens can do away with the fact that you chose to be that way. Now, that's not counting actual demonic possession. That's something entirely. I think a lot of times people are just bad and they blame it on other things. But but we should be skeptical of these things, and we should be deliberate in the choices we make. And that sounded too preachy. Let's change the subject.
No. I
Good.
thought it was very good.
You know, the wolf man there in Ashland, my uncle said as a child that wolf man, wolf creature, whatever, my uncle said it was a man because he was friends with the gentleman's son who was the wolf man dressed in this suit, that he was some kind of an acrobat that worked for the circus and could run on all fours like a human. And my uncle, this is what my uncle told me. I could ask him again. I mean, I could talk to him. He just lives right up the street. But he said that guy could run on all fours and chase you as fast as a dog could chase you.
Wow.
And I told him, I'm like, listen, I don't believe it was a man in the suit. I think your friend's dad was full of crap. I think he was just telling you that to make you think he was something spectacular because he was an old 40-year-old middle-aged balding guy like me, you know, now that wished I could run like that. But if you see me run,
gosh, you can say that he did this to make you be unafraid. No, it wasn't a werewolf. It was just somebody in a suit. So you don't have to be worried to walk out at night and take the garbage out for your mother. It's okay. There's not a werewolf.
well,
Funny story.
I'm still going to carry my gun when I go out to take my trash out tonight, Charlie. Thank you.
But right, and what would be scary? And a lot of times I'll forget stuff and I have to go out and get something out of the trunk of the car, and you know the thought flits across your brain. What if you're digging around and you raise up and you shut the trunk and there's a werewolf standing there?
Oh my God.
Okay, so you know, I've amused myself about this for years, right? Well, then when I worked for the Ashland Daily Independent, you know, around Halloween time, they had scary stories. So I wrote a story about a guy because someone had annoyed me with a cell phone being oblivious, you know. So I decided I'm going to kill off this person, you know, in the story. Illegal. If I'd actually pummeled them, I probably would have gotten arrested, or I would have gotten pummeled myself. So anyway, I write this story, and it's about the friends are talking on the phone, and the one friend says, "Hey, I can't talk long. My phone's dying." And he's going outside while he's talking on the phone, and there's this monster out there creeping up behind him that his friend can see because he's doing FaceTime. And the friend keeps trying to tell him, look behind you, there's something here. And he's just rattling off a mile a minute. So he gets something out of the car, and this thing is getting closer and closer. And he opens the door, and this thing comes right behind him, and his phone goes to black.
Oh, no.
So I sent this to my friend Roger. I wasn't thinking anything about it because, you know, Roger likes the weird stuff that I think about and do. So I get this phone call, and he says, "You," and a string of expletives. "How could you do this to me?" I'm like, "Roger, what the heck are you talking about? You can't that story that way." So I said, "Okay, Roger, look, I wrote the story. I'll finish the story." He gets in the house and closes the door before the monster. End of story.
Yeah, I mean, that's left to your imagination, right? You finished the story.
Right. But now the most terrifying things along those lines that I've ever read was in a book I have right over here. Let me find it. Oh, no, that's not it. Here it is. The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. In that book, he says, he's talking about things like that. And he says, maybe the transmogrification of fangs and fur actually do happen, but the only ones that have personal knowledge never survive to tell us.
That's true.
It's scary stuff. That's just like Carl Sagan said, there's two equally terrifying propositions in the universe, that we're alone and that we're not.
It's true too.
If you let your imagination go along that spectrum, so many things are possible. And that, between those poles, that's where legends happen. because Beowulf fights monsters. It's a cool story. Where's the seed of truth? The Vikings lived in some really brutal conditions where everything, you think Australia is bad, everything in the North countries was trying to kill you because it wanted to eat you. There wasn't enough food. It was a brutal existence. So it makes you wonder, maybe there was just some guy that could, throw punch bears or something. Who knows? And he was just really impressive. Or maybe they made up the story to convince themselves that their challenges could be overcome.
True. And that's where legends are born, right?
Yes.
And,
unlike me, I've been told I am a legend in my own mind. But
did your wife say that?
Yes, but she wasn't the first. My friend, your own reality, don't you? I said, well, yeah, I know everybody there. But I really enjoy looking back through history, and I like current topics too, because I've always thought you can find out a lot about a society by what makes them afraid.
That's true.
And like we discussed at the beginning of this episode here, that fear of all. We've traded Frankenstein for artificial intelligence, Skynet.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are just as devastating. Yeah. The people with high-powered rifles have no more chance against the Terminator than those villagers in pitchforks had against Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah,
that's true.
Who ironically was actually named Adam, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. But that's such a sad. Really, it's a sad story. I remember watching one of the renditions of Frankenstein. I think it was Mary. I don't remember what it was, but me and Dad watched it together, and he was lamenting to Dr. Frankenstein, talking about how he had a companion, he had love, and he said, and I have nobody. Right. It was really a sad. Frankenstein wasn't the creature, wasn't really the monster. The doctor was.
Exactly. Because
it goes back to what you said. It's not really the fangs and the bolts and the scars. It's the human.
Right.
It's the true monster.
Yes. And, that kind of thing plays out in these sci-fi stories about androids or aliens, the fish out of water style stories, because we get the human behavior held up to us as a mirror by creatures who aren't human. So
that's true.
Interesting. And
true.
People know a lot about yourself. It's like I love the old tales about elves, and I'm thinking more along the lines of your Tolkien elves, not the little bug-shaped fairies and stuff like that. Although they come into it too, but there was numerous tales of interactions between humans and elves, and they always ended in tragedy because they were never intended to be together.
Right.
Or how they were with one another, or how much they loved one another. They really didn't.
It makes me think of the Gnome Mobile. Remember that? Driving along in the Gnome Mobile. I love that show. But you're right. I mean, it's crazy even when you think in terms of, because I watch this older guy. He's from England. He goes around looking for pixies. Yes. And he videotapes them and stuff, and they've stabbed him with spears and poison on it and everything. So I mean, but I love stuff like that. The Indians talked about the gnomes and the people in the forest that were little people.
Yes.
And I wonder though, like we've often discussed on this program, what part of the legend is true. I mean, I don't believe that these people always made things up just to keep their kids from going out in the woods. I mean, you're living right in the middle of the woods, so I believe that there's a lot of truth to some of it.
I think there is too. It's like one of the postulations about why we don't see elves anymore. The humans didn't necessarily exterminate it; they outbred them. because humans breed like rabbits, and just by overwhelming numbers, and the fairy folk began to draw away and shrink in stature, and where once you had the tall elves in shining armor and swords, like most beautiful medieval knights, became the little tiny bug-shaped creatures that would haunt eaves and the cooking spaces of human homes. And whereas before an army couldn't hold them off, by that point, a simple bent piece of iron, a little bit of salt thrown out, was enough to keep them at bay, because they just shrank and withdrew from the world. Talking about the little people, they've always been, in almost every culture, have been purported to have lived underground in cavern complexes. Now, Josh and I are both from Kentucky, and, due to natural geology combined with coal mining, the state of Kentucky is like a giant chunk of Swiss cheese. You find a cave, you can go a third of the way across the state and never come out God.
That's true.
So all these cavern complexes have.
I was going to share this story. I know we're running out of time, but it was my experience with one of this during the time when I was working for Dr. Swidler. So it was probably within the year, the same year, maybe before the Dead Files came. So that me of that time. And I had a client she was actually a forest ranger, that she would come to get work done, dental work, and then I would do the cranial sacral work or energy work with her, because a lot of these people I would work with them energetically as well. And this is what the time when I can see things, right? So I'm working on her, and I start to see her. So what had happened? Her foot was hurt. Like she went on a trip to Scotland. I think it was Scotland, and she said she was in the mountain area walking, and then all of a sudden, it's like her foot just went out. So I'm seeing, and I see this little creature. It's about this big, and it was inside of her foot. And what I did was I ended up drawing it, and seeing what it was, and I could see clearly what it was. And so I saw that it had jumped onto her foot at that moment and stayed with her, and her foot was never, and she literally was in terrible pain. And so the whole trip was pretty much ruined. And then she came to see me within a week of coming back, because I'd helped her before. And I said to that little thing at that time, I was still saying, God, and I prayed on it, but it was before Bill Bean and us getting that. And I told it to leave, and however I did that, and it did. And her foot got better, and she was able to walk and do everything. But I went home and I started to research that night the image that I saw, and that little image just so happened to be one of the legend fairy tale creatures of that country, and it looked exactly like what I had seen, and it was a trickster spirit. So that to me was like a huge validation that again, that they can manipulate through these portals and through time, that they are not held in time, but it did leave her. And it was the image. I still have the drawing somewhere in my sketchbook books. But
when you pull it out, where did you go?
Yeah, so at that time, I wasn't doing like what I was doing with Bill Bean. Like, I have certain things I say now. I have like a protocol that I do. If what I do now completely different from what I did then, I don't even know what I told it to. I just told it to get off of her and not to stay in there with us. But at that time, I wasn't as much as discernment back then as I am now. Like, I have my rules if I have to meet with these things like that. But it was amazing, because I had seen things like the fairies and different things. I thought they were there, but that was really an affirmation to me. But again, it was not a friendly little spirit. It was a bad little thing. and it was attached to her. Was it possibly something else in disguise as that little spirit? Maybe, but it did take on the form of that creature that was a legend in that area.
Well, for every tale of the benevolent cobbler's elves that
Yeah.
finished shoes for him,
Mhm.
there's 100 stories about evil spirits. People used to call these spirits, give them names like Mother's Blessing and things like that, not because they were good spirits. They were trying to placate do horrible things.
Yeah.
And Christian religion names these creatures demons. Ancient people just called them spirits. There's nothing to say that they're not the same entity.
Correct.
So really, you have to be careful about things like that.
Yeah.
But on a humorous note, by that being in her foot, made me think of the left-handed Irish blessing of may the good Lord turn the hearts of your enemies, or at least turn their heels so you'll know them by their limp.
That's a good one.
Wow. Well, she's an amazing person, she in the wilderness doing the doing that work, and that was her work, and so walking was very important for her to do, being a forest ranger, but I thought that was just so amazing.
You have to have a good set of feet to do that.
Yes, you do. And it's kind of like those little creatures. Well, one of the things that reminded one of the voices I heard when Tony in the Tony tape, I call them the Tony tapes, there was some of those voices. I'm like, it's like I don't think I'd want to meet up with those voices, And then you got some voices that just sounded like, gosh, I really believe that. I believe this is they're like, thank you. Somebody hears us. Like I didn't think of them as demonic or anything. It's like, I just think it's just like us here. There's all them, and there's us. We're all a variety. And we just have to pray to God. Like it just opens up a whole can of worms. So, but
It's almost like they're attracted to that one area where that frequency can be picked up. It's kind of like standing in line, like when you go to a conference and you stand to ask questions in a microphone.
Yeah.
There's a whole group of people around that's got questions.
That's what it reminds. Yeah, you're right. That's a lot like it was, wasn't it? Like
that's what I visualized in my mind when he was talking about it, and I visualize everything. Like when Charlie's telling stories, when you are, like when I visualized you actually seeing that little creature at her foot, and then everything. Every time Charlie tells a story, I visualize it. I love it. I've got a great imagination.
Well, no, you're also very blessed with the abilities to see. So I think, because we've heard you literally had that one man that was dead come back to speak to you to tell his family. I mean, you're no stranger to the being able to see.
Yeah, that freaked me out. I mean, his sister was there applying for a job. Can you imagine coming to apply for a job and your dead brother talking to the crazy preacher that's standing there interviewing you? It's like
that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Actually, she was blessed to be there.
She was freaking out.
We literally have gone over our time. So I wish we should do an hour and a half show if Stan would let us someday. Maybe we could do that. And especially when Charlie's on.
Well, we both. I know you've already been on Charlie's show, and I need to be on.
You need to.
We both need to go on there together and have all three of us together on Charlie's show.
I'd make you show up too.
There you go.
Okay, well, I'll do that. I like our teamwork. I like that. So
I do too.
So Charles, what is something that's coming up for the future for you, like that you're going to be doing soon? Or
I'm doing more casting shadows with Charlie Romans. I've been doing a lot of that. I'm working on some fiction and still working on a book about my podcast because I think that stories need to be told more than once.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Now, in September, are you going to be talking at the Bigfoot?
Well,
at Olive Hill?
the Bigfoot Festival in Olive Hill. Yes, I'll be a speaker there.
Nice.
Tabitha's been nice enough to invite me back. I didn't scare her off the first time I was there. So
Listen,
You should go. You should be in that, Bishop Joshua. He lives in your neck of the woods.
yeah, and I used to be their pastor, so I know them pretty good. So, and we've talked Bigfoot a lot, you know, and I got out of the Bigfoot scene, well, just been a few years ago because of all the fighting between the different people. But I want to go there probably and record and do some interviewing. And of course, I know a journalist guy that's really good at interviewing people too, and he'll probably help me. And I think we could do a live show there, and I think it would be wonderful.
It would be wonderful. So we've got that coming up, but in June, I'm going to be going to, and I've been calling it Son of Scarefest, but they're actually calling it Spawn of Scare. It's Scarefest Point 2. It's a smaller version of the Scarefest. You know, Scarefest is a wonderful paranormal horror convention. They have celebrities and people from all walks of life that go to this. It's great. I'll be going to that in June. And then in September, I'll be going to the Bigfoot Festival. And I'll also be going to the second Lexington Comic and Toy Convention. This is going to be a busy year. And then I'll turn around in October and go back to the main Scarefest. So yeah, I'll be able to inflict myself on a whole bunch of people.
Well, maybe I'll go. Maybe I can go with you to one of those. Maybe the big Scarefest.
Yeah, you should.
That would be fun. You should. You're in the same state, I think, so that would be.
Then we'll dress up like ZZ Top when I go, though, so nobody will recognize me.
Well, you know, not the last one, but the one that I dressed up as a werewolf and got to meet David Naughton from American.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome. I know. I remember that. That was so amazing. You should have, like, did you have, what was it you had, like a can of
Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper, yeah, Dr. Pepper. That's
your pepper. And I remember him on that back in those days.
Initially, he thought me and my wife were the most horrible parents ever, because my daughter told him, "Oh, I just love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies." And he's like, "Your parents let you watch that movie?" And she said, "Well, no, they edited out some of the scenes." And then he's like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, yeah, mercy.
Pretty bad.
So we edited out, didn't let her watch the rated R parts of it.
Yeah, that's what we did with my son back in those days.
Once I realized that we had done that, then we were the coolest parents
Oh,
ever.
good.
Well, you know, the bad thing about it was when I was a kid, my parents didn't let us watch those things, but we went to my aunt and uncle's house and watched them.
You know,
so that's how kids were. But you know, and I used to be I was a bad kid. You know, until I got saved and became a Christian, became a minister. I was a bad kid. Just put it that way. But
people,
all right.
My mother's gray hair, all of them said Charlie on it. So, you know, I terrorized my poor mother. I used to tell her, I said, "Of course you love me, Mom. You don't want to admit failure." She said, "Keep it up. I'll just go ahead and admit it." But
just like I told my wife she needed to embrace her mistake, and she gave me a hug.
Oh, you guys. Well, you both turned out all right. You're both great.
Well, you did too.
Oh my God, I have not been the best person either, so I understand.
Hey, at least Josh and I are both wore down so much now that we don't get out and cause as much trouble.
That's right. Oh, but there are sometimes. I'm just kidding. Wait till we get together. Paint the town red.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and we're gonna have you come back, and then we're gonna come be on your show because I'll set that up, and we'll get on your show too.
Yes,
and that'll be fun.
You know what I should do? I should get a show on the web TV network, and then I'll be on your show, and we'll just transfer right over into my show. Then we can talk 2 hours.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. You should. Stan would love that to have you, I bet, John. Right,
Charles,
Stan?
you're not only good looking, you got a good thinker too.
Well, I tell people all the time, I said, my wife thinks I'm good looking, but, I question her vision sometimes. And I think at this point, we've been married so long now, she's like, that's what I got.
And you know what? Don't feel bad. I was told I had the perfect face for radio.
Yes,
So, I don't know if that's a compliment or if it should just throw that in file 13 and save that for later.
You guys, you're so awesome.
It's always great to have Charlie Romans with us. Charlie Romans always brings some kind of magical. There's something magical about Charlie. I don't know. It's just it's how it is. It's just how he is. And
it's
Charlie,
highly functioning lunatic. That's what it is, actually.
Maybe that's why we get along so good.
But it's wonderful talking to both of you, and I really enjoy you having me on the show, and I appreciate that. And I like to throw the information out there that I've got, and I'm always receptive to people saying, "Hey, what did you mean?" Or I can tell you something else about that, because it's all about. And keep an eye on the shadows, because the shadows is where all the good information lives.
Wow.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Good night, everybody, and thank you.
What a great show. What a great way to end the show, to give you something to leave your bedroom light on for tonight, because you don't want to see the shadows, right?
Jeff said, if you ever think you're being watched, you probably are. I said, Jeff, I drive home. Don't be creepy like that. Have a wonderful night. I've kept you too long.
With that being said, Charlie, we love you. We appreciate you, Mercedes. We love you and Joe. Appreciate you and your family. And from our family here in the Sparks Castle, we bid you good evening and good night.